What's going on, people? So listen, let's talk about how to fix bad credit. So I'm going to give you some strategies on how to fix bad credit. Because listen, the fact is this: if you have bad credit, everything in life is expensive. You end up paying more for everything. Right now, everything is already expensive. The cost of living is expensive. You add bad credit in that equation, you end up spending more, or you end up paying more for goods and services. So what is the solution? The solution is you need to fix your credit, right? Now, I'm going to give you some strategies on what you need to do to fix your credit, right? Or even start, right? Because it's all about knowing, right? You want to know, where do I start? So I'm going to give you some starting points. So now, just before I begin, so my name is Vita King. I am a credit and business funding specialist, right? So I teach people how to leverage their personal credit so they can get business funding with the big banks and the credit union, right? So right now, I have the Funding Academy. I'm going to leave the link below in the description section and also in the comment section, right? So right now, there's a promotion. You can get in. It's a 12 months. It's a 1-year enrollment where you can get into the academy and you can ask me questions. There's a question and answer support. Now, listen, the promotion is until April. So as of April, the price is going to go up. Because listen, if you have bad credit, you need to know how to fix it, right? You can watch all the YouTube videos, but if you don't take action, that bad credit is always going to follow you. So listen, if you're in this position, if you have bad credit, you need to take that seriously. Because what happens is this, right? For goods and services, right? Let's say you want to rent an apartment, right? The landlord will end up pulling your credit, and then just because they see that you have bad credit, they're going to start asking you to put in 3 months worth of deposit, just to make life more difficult for you, right? So you need to figure out a way, okay, you know what? I need to really get to the bottom of this bad credit thing, right? And really fix it. Because listen, what happens is this: I've assessed, right, or I've reviewed thousands of credit, right? Because when I was working for the big banks, one of the department that I was working at, it was accounts receivable and collections, right? And in that department, every day we used to look at people's credit report. And this is one thing that I noticed, or this is one thing that this is the root cause to bad credit, right? To having bad credit, this is the root cause. It all starts with missing payments, right? So if you have bad credit today, or if you're going to have bad credit in the future, or if you've had bad credit in the past, the root cause of bad credit is missing payments. Because one payment ends up being 30 days late, 60 days late, 90 days late, 120 days late, and so on, until it gets to a point, until it gets to the charge-off phase, where the lender, the bank, the creditor, they just decide to charge it off. Now, once you get a charge off on your credit report, that's really bad, right? That's what you call a derogatory mark, right? So that's really, you don't want to get to that point. So all bad credit, right? If you had bad credit, it all starts with missing payment. Now, listen, life happens. I understand that, right? Life happens, things happen. You doing so many things, you're juggling so many things, and then you just end up missing a payment here and then. But the root cause, that is the root cause to all bad payment, is missing payments, right? You miss 1 payment, 2 payments, 3 payments, and then that 3 payment ends up 6 payments. Once it reaches 6 payments, the lender usually just charges it off. And now look at this. This is what they do. Once it reaches 6 payment, they will charge it off. So you have a charge off. Now you have 6 missed payments on your credit report. You have a charge off, and then you have a collection item, right? Because they end up sending that to collection. So now you have 3 derogatory items on your credit report: a collection, late payments. You have a charge off, and then you have collection. So listen. One of the things you need to do is this, right? When it comes to fixing bad credit, you need to get your credit report, right? Ask for your free credit report from Equifax and TransUnion, right? I'm talking about ask for your full, it's called a disclosure statement, right? Or a disclosure report, right? Your full disclosure report. So you need to request from that. You need to request for that from either from both actually, Equifax and TransUnion. Because if you don't know what's on your credit report, how are you going to dispute it? How are you going to fix it? So it starts with you pulling your credit report from Equifax and TransUnion. You need to look at it to see what's going on. Now, here's the unfortunate thing. Right? This is the reality. Credit reports were designed for lenders and creditors, right? So credit reports were not designed for consumers to understand it, right? Because when you pull your credit report, when you get your full disclosure credit report from Equifax and TransUnion, that report, right, it wasn't designed for you to read. It was designed for lenders and creditors to read. So most of the time, a lot of people, when they pull their credit report, they don't know what's going on. They, it's just, it looks like it's cryptic, right? It looks incomprehensible, like you just can't read it, which is, right, they designed it that way, right? They designed it so that you as a consumer, you can understand it, because it wasn't really designed for you, right? It was designed for lenders and creditors, right? Because listen, let me give you an example. I had a client that I was dealing with, right? I told him to pull his credit report, right? So he pulled his credit report, and then he showed me his credit report. And when I read his credit report, he had a revolving charge-off, right? A revolving charge-off that he was not aware of. Like, he knew that there was something wrong in his credit, because I think he said one time he went to the bank to apply to renew his mortgage, and then the bank told him that, hey, listen, man, there's something on your credit report you need to fix. So he knew that there was something on his credit report, but he just couldn't pinpoint it, right? He couldn't figure out what it was. So when he came to me, I analyzed and looked at his credit report. I looked at it, like, okay, this is the problem. You have something called a revolving charge-off. So basically, it's an account that was charged off, but it's keep renewing, right? It keeps reactivating as if it's a brand new charge-off. Now, that's a very difficult item to dispute, right? It can be disputed, but it's very difficult to dispute, because you have to talk to the creditor, to the lender, to Equifax, but it can be done. It could be disputed, right? But you don't want it to get to that point, because a revolving charge-off, basically what happens is this: it's like every month it keeps renewing, it keeps activating, because a charge-off, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to get too technical about what a charge-off is, but just know this: once a payment reaches once you miss 6 payments in a row consecutively, right? You miss 6 payments, the lender, the creditor, they will charge it off, right? So now you have a charge-off on your credit report, and then they will report it, or they will sell it to a collection agency. So you don't want to do that, right? So the client that I was dealing with, when I told him, okay, this is your problem. Your problem is you have a charge-off on your account. So, and then he found out that the account it was a fraudulent account, right? So it was an account that somebody opened under his name, but he wasn't aware of it, right? So therefore, the person that opened under his name, they end up maxing the credit card and didn't make any payments, right? See, everything, the root cause of bad credit is missing payments. So then what happened was that payment ended up missing, right? It went to 1 payment, 2 payment, 3 payment, 4 payment, 5 payment, 6 payment, and then there was a charge-off. But because he didn't pick it up, he didn't pinpoint it, that charge-off just kept renewing itself as if it was a brand new charge-off, right? So a charge-off is only supposed to happen once on the entirety of an account, right? I know it's complicated, because it is complicated, because credit report wasn't designed. The language, the lingo that they use, the terminology, it was designed for lenders and creditors, right? So when I was working for the bank, I used to, right, every day, this is what I used to do, is look at people's credit report, right? And I was looking at it, I was getting the full disclosure, because some of you get the credit report from the app, right? So either from your bank or from third parties, right? So you get the app credit report, and now that's not the full. You want to get it in paper, right? You want to at least print it or get the full disclosure credit report on PDF. So this is where it starts. The root of all bad credit starts with missing payment. So whatever you do, you don't want to miss any payments, right? By any means necessary, don't miss a payment, because one payment, if you miss, now, what constitutes a missing payment? So whenever a payment is more than 30 days late, right, it gets reported to the credit reporting agency, Equifax and TransUnion. So let's say you miss a payment, it's only a few days late, 5 days late. Once you notice that, you want to make that payment right away, right? Because it only gets reported to the credit bureau, Equifax and TransUnion, once it reaches 30 days past due. So whenever a payment reaches 30 days past due, it gets sent to the credit report. So now you have a delinquency, you have a late payment that's showing on your credit report. So you have one missing payment. So you have one payment that was 30 days late, right? So a payment is considered late when it's 30 days, once it reaches 30 days past due. So if you miss a payment, right, just make the payment, just make that payment immediately, right? Just pay it off immediately, right? So that way it doesn't get to the 30 days past due. Now, listen, I'm giving you some real information because a lot of this, the school system is not going to teach you this. Even the banks are not going to teach you this information, right? You use a credit card every day. Every day you're using credit cards, but you don't understand how much it can damage your personal credit by just missing one payment, right? So make sure when you miss a payment, right? If you miss a payment, or if you forget to make a payment, then just pay it off immediately, because it won't get reported to the credit bureau until it reaches 30 days past due. So now, going back to the original video, how do you fix bad credit? Well, the first step is you need to ask for your full disclosure report from Equifax and TransUnion. Get the PDF, right? Once you get the PDF, start going through it, start reviewing it, start looking at it, see if there's any inaccuracy, see if there's anything that is not supposed to be in there, or anything that you don't recognize, any accounts that you don't recognize, any accounts that you're not aware of, or accounts that you've already made payments but it's still reporting, right? Once you figure out these inaccuracies, then you can start disputing it, right? So that's why the Funding Academy, this is where, listen, because I know credit report, right? I know how to deal with these collection agencies. I know how to deal with credit bureaus, right? I know how to deal with creditors, because this is what I used to do when I was working for the big banks. Is right. I used to evaluate. I used to review people's credit on a daily basis, right? I used to review their real credit, right? Like, because on a lot of these apps, you don't get your real credit score, right? You get what's known as, what do you call it? It's not a real credit score, right? It's a third-party credit score, right? Most of us in Canada, we don't have access to a real credit score, which is known as a Beacon score or a FICO score, right? So on these apps, right, the apps are giving you their version of your credit score, right? So we used to, if you work for the banks or if you work for any financial institution, you have access to people's, you have access to the real credit score. I mean, the credit score that the lenders use, right? Because credit score is, it's an algorithm, right? So, I wouldn't say real credit score. I would say the credit score that lenders use, right? There's the credit score that you see, and then there's credit score that the lenders use to make lending decisions, right? Now, that credit score, you and I, we don't have access to it. So when you're logging into Equifax, that's not the credit score that the lender is going to use when they are evaluating your personal credit to make a lending decision, right? So to close it off, if you have bad credit, you need to get, you need to fix it, because it's not going to fix itself. Because what happens is this, right? The information ends up staying on your credit report for 7 years, right? So bad credit, negative information stays for 7 years. Even after 7 years, right? After 7 years, it's supposed to fall off, or it's supposed to, remove itself. But sometimes that information still ends up reporting, so you now have to dispute it, right? So now, if you don't know that, hey, listen, after 7 years, negative information is supposed to come off my credit report. So let's say if you miss a payment, right? If you miss one payment, that information is going to stay there for the next 7 years, right? 6 to 7 years, up to 7 years, right? So after 7 years, it's supposed to remove it. So listen, whatever you do, don't miss any payment by any means necessary. So if you have bad credit, the first thing is to get your full disclosure report from Equifax and TransUnion, right? Get the PDF version. Once you get it, then start reviewing to see if there's any inaccuracy, if there's anything that doesn't make any sense. So now this is where I come in, because I'm a credit and funding specialist. The Funding Academy, this is where I have training videos. I have links to the provincial consumer agencies, right? Because when you're filing a dispute with the bureaus, if they're not removing something and you know that it's it's not supposed to be in there, you can always file a complaint against the credit bureaus, Equifax and TransUnion, right? You can file a complaint against them with they call them consumer agencies, right? So every province has their own name, right? In Ontario, it's called the Consumer Protection Ontario, right? So every province has their own agencies that oversees the credit reporting agency, right? So if they're not being compliant, or they're not cooperating, if they're not removing they're not removing inaccuracy on your credit report that is not supposed to be in there, or that's past the statute of limitation, then you can file a complaint against the credit bureau, right? Equifax and TransUnion. So in the Funding Academy, I have links to all of this, right? I have these type of resources in there. And also in the Funding Academy, this is where you get to interact with me. You can ask me questions, right? I have a Q&A, question and answer support. So if you want to know, okay, where do I start, right? I have this collection amount, or what do I do, right? And then you see also dealing with collection, right? Because working for the bank. Now here, this is one thing you need to know, right? One of the most, it's called telco companies, right? Or telecommunication companies. So Bell and Telus. Now these two companies, right? If they send that account to collection and the collection agency sends it to Equifax, it becomes very difficult to remove it, because these companies are notorious. They are known for, right? They tell collection agencies not to remove these accounts, even after you make the payment, right? Or even after they don't remove it, right? So you will have to wait till after the 7 years. So if you're dealing with these companies, right? These telco companies, telecommunication companies, the Bell, the Telus, listen, make sure you don't miss payments with them, because they are notorious. They will send your account to collection after 2 missed payments, right? 2, 3 missed payments, they're sending your account to collection. Usually the format or the process or the process is after you miss 6 payments, that's when a lender or creditor will send it to a collection agent. That's when they will charge it off. But these telco companies, right? After, you miss 1 payment, they're sending it to collection. You miss 2 payments, that account is gone. So make sure you're on top of it. And also, every company or every bank or credit union has their own internal collection department. So whenever you miss a payment, you want to make sure at least, right, before it gets sent to a third-party collection agency, you want to communicate with them. Because what happens is this: when an account leaves the banks, right? When it leaves the financial institution, the bank, the credit union, the credit card company, right? When it gets reported or when it gets sold to a third-party collection agency, now you have to deal with 3 parties. You have to deal with the collection agency, you have to deal with the creditor or the bank or the lender that you were dealing with before, and then you have to deal with a credit bureau. So listen, to avoid all that, make sure be on top of it, right? So if you miss a payment, just call them immediately and then just make arrangement, right? So that way they're not selling it to a third-party collection agency, because once it's sold to a third-party collection agency, now you have to deal with 3 parties. You have to deal with the credit bureau, Equifax or TransUnion. You have to deal with the lender, the original creditor, and then you have to deal with the collection agency. Now, when you're trying to dispute or you're trying to fix your credit, right, they're going to give you the runaround. If you call the collection agency is going to tell you, oh, you have to call the creditor. The creditor is going to tell you, no, we sold it to the collection agency. The collection agency is going to go, oh, no, and then if you file it with Equifax is going to contact the collection agency. The collection agency is going to contact the creditor. So listen, it's a mess. So make sure, right, if you're dealing with the banks, the financial institution, the credit unions, and the big banks, when you miss a payment, deal with them directly. Don't let them sell it off to a third-party collection agency, right? So listen, that's why I'm here, to give you this information. That's why in the Funding Academy, it's a 1-year membership. This is where you get to interact with me, ask me questions. This is question and support. I have training video, I have resources, links to help you fix your credit so you can get out of this mess. Because right now, as I said, the cost of everything, the cost of living, the cost of goods and services, it's already high. If you factor in you having bad credit, everything is even more expensive. So listen, I'm out of here. I'm going to see you all in the next video. Peace.